This is not good. I think this is the end.
Yeah, I think this is the end, bro. I think we're dead.
My name is Andrew Dingus.
Oh, shittings.
He's coming back!
You just picked up a shiny new Mortenax Blade, didn't ya? Well, today, I am here to give you all the information you could need on how to play him, how to build him, who he likes being teamed up with, and what investments are best to make for him. Let's get into it. Mortenax Blade is a fire character following the path of Nihility. His main goal is to ult to swap into his Infinite Fury state, which unlocks his offensive potential and allows him to inflict debuffs on the enemies to give your team an easier time to conquer your enemies. Starting off Mortenax Blade's kit is his technique. It is an attack which can start battles and after entering combat taunt all enemies for 1 turn. Blade's damage taken is additionally decreased by 90% for 2 turns. Before ulting, Blade's basic attack deals fire damage equal to a portion of his max HP to a single enemy, and taunts them so that they can only hit him for their next turn. Blade's skill is actually locked behind being in his Infinite Fury state, which can be acquired by using his first ultimate. For Blade's first ultimate, which costs 160 energy, he activates a zone, consumes part of his max HP, and enters the Infinite Fury state. This state gives him extra crit rate and extra crit damage for himself. Once in this Infinite Fury state, he inflicts the debuff Balefire Bind on all enemies. Balefire Bind reduces enemy defense and increases the damage they take, which lasts for 2 turns. Something else to note here is that a countdown timer for the Infinite Fury state will appear on the action timeline, shown by this icon. If Blade takes a killing blow before this countdown hits, he will be kicked out of his zone, losing the Infinite Fury state and recovering part of his health. Once Blade awakens his zone, his skill can be used and he unlocks access to his second ultimate. His basic attack now deals more damage, doubling his multiplier, and keeps the single target taunt that he has before he ults the first time. Blade's skill does not require skill points and only consumes part of his max HP. This skill deals fire damage equal to a portion of his max HP to all enemies, as well as dealing 4 extra hits, all of which equal a smaller portion of his max HP to 1 random enemy. If current HP is not sufficient, he will instead drop to 1 HP when using his skill. He is not allowed to use his skill when not in Infinite Fury, or when HP is at 1. His second ultimate also costs 160 energy, just like his first one, and deals fire damage equal to a portion of his HP to all enemies. For Blade's talent, while his zone is active, after each attack an ally uses on an enemy, Balefire Bind is applied to that enemy, and Blade gains a point of charge. Once this charge hits 9 points, and his HP is above 1, Blade will immediately consume all of this charge and immediately activate his skill to attack all enemies, which then refills 27 energy. For his skill priorities, I would first say his ult is the most important since it upgrades both ults, then his skill because that's going to be your second most used ability, then the talent, then the basic. To close off his abilities, we will talk about his traces. So stats he gains from his traces are 10% HP, 12% crit rate, and 22.4% fire damage, so you can ignore 12% of his crit rate asks for later on. For his A2 trace, Blade can store 80 extra energy. After he ults, this energy is given to him, and the stored energy is reset to 0. On battle start, or when Blade's zone is lost, he will instantly regenerate 75% of his max energy if it is below 75%. When energy is refilled to its max, he also dispels debuffs on himself. For Blade's A4 trace, when his zone is active, his chance of being hit by enemies goes up and damage he takes is reduced. After being hit, he applies Balefire Bind to the attacker and gains a charge. For his A6 trace, while Blade's zone is active, allies will deal increased damage. Also, if there are teammates that are on the path of Nihility, ultimate damage dealt by those allies raises. If there are no teammates with this path, then Blade's damage increases instead. For builds, I personally recommend 5000 or more HP for your Bone Collection's planar set, a crit rate of at most 70 to 80% before battle, since Infinite Fury does give Blade an extra 20% crit rate, and a damage value of around 120 to 130% before battle. I will also recommend a speed of around 134 or more, but if you're running Cypher's Cone on him, do try and get that 170 speed breakpoint so you can make the most of that. Stats of importance are as follows: crit rate, crit damage, speed, then HP. Recommended light cones are his signature, Reforce and Hellfire, which increases HP by 30%, regenerates 20 energy once each wave, and after using skill to attack, inflicts a Purgatory State which lasts for 2 turns. This allows the target to receive an extra 30% crit damage from allies, and an extra 30% crit damage from the wearer. Other options include Tutorial, Cypher Signature, Lies Dance on the Breeze, and Boundless Choreo. For Relics, I'm gonna be honest here, there's literally like one worthwhile set to use here. Your best option is Divine Querying Master Smith. For main stats, I would opt for a crit rate chest piece, speed boots, and either an HP percent or fire damage orb. Do note that HP is technically a little bit better here with damage percent buffs, and fire damage is more so inclined for if your substats are a bit more favorable, but both are good options here. If you want to be a bit spicy to get as many turns as you can in the zero cycle and you don't really care about Blade's damage contribution, then you can also opt for Eagle set. But unless you are already familiar with how it plays, then I would recommend against it. For Planars, again, you kind of really only have one option. It's Bone Collection, Serene Demzine, and then you do have the classic options of Von Weck and Lushaka as well, but I would recommend those a bit less. Now for Blade's Eidolons. For E1, while Zone is active, all enemies type res reduces, and after using the free skill from his talent, Infinite Furious Countdown is action delayed by 15%. Blade's E1 is a really good pickup because it not only acts as another thing to amp your damage, but it keeps you in Blade's zone for even longer. Really good pickup here. For his E2, whenever an ally uses an ultimate that deals damage, it is countered as if you used a follow-up attack. And Blade now buffs ally follow-up attacks. Blade's charge also lowers from 9 to 7. To be honest, E2 is pretty insane as well. It's definitely worth it, even if you're just picking it up to buff ult alone, but then you get more frequent skill uses too. It's pretty nuts. It's kind of crazy. Definitely could be very worthwhile in the future. Now for something I'll be calling the 4-cost strategy. Essentially what this will be is how best to invest in a character starting from E0S0 to E2S1. For Mortenax Blade here, once you have him at E0S0, it's best first to get his E1, then his E2. You should then end with his signature cone. Both of his Eidolons serve as insane additions for his amping on the team, and honestly it outperforms what his cone can offer. While his cone is definitely very good, and it offers crit damage to his team and himself, giving Blade just more ways to amp and stay in his zone for even longer are just honestly better options to focus on. On top of that, Tutorial is such a useful cone that honestly it's kind of a shame that we don't have 2 of them available, because the amount of Nihility characters that seem to want this thing when you're not picking up a signature cone seems to keep increasing. So Tutorial's a really good option for him, and it will serve you well. I think he will be extremely worth investing in as he starts to rerun, but I think starting with E0S0 is honestly a good idea. Just wait and see how the meta evolves. If you want to pick up E1 or E2, go for it, but that's my personal opinion. To be completely honest, Mortenax Blade is usable in just about every team, that it's pretty hard to go wrong with picking him for any team that doesn't have any true team member asks. One thing I should say is that Blade is going to be a very strong option for sustainless runs, since he can not only taunt to keep your team safe, but he has a higher aggro chance. This will more often than not cause him to get hit in place of an ally, which, keeps your team protected. I would also recommend using him in teams that attack frequently so that he can launch his skill that uses his charge mechanic more often. A few of the teams that fit him the best are Acheron, then the second slot can either be an Asheville, a Cypher, Welt, or Silverwolf. Blade can be your third slot, and then your fourth slot can be a Sustain. Now, if you do have E2 Acheron, you can just opt for having Blade as the one Nihility ally, then just pick a different amp. You can also use Blade in the Madame Herta team, then either Anaxa or whatever erudition you want to use with Herta, and then Tribi or a Sustain. Now, do note that since Tribi goes in the opposite direction as Blade is a debuffer and Tribi is a buffer, you kind of get to double dip in the best of both worlds. So it's very good as a team option if that's what you want to do. Since Blade is good with follow-up teams, you could opt for something like Fei Xiao, Ashevale, Blade himself, and then either a Sustain or another amp. But to each your own. Technically it's a little better to use Asheville and kick out Fei Xiao for another amp or a Sustain, but If you have Feisha, you probably should try and use her where you can. You can also use him with Sustainless Dot, that's been pretty fun so far. And you did not hear this from me, but he's also going to be best in slot for the Gilgamesh and Saber team that's coming very soon. Cough, cough, cough. 4.4. That's going to be a team. He's going to be best in slot, but you didn't hear that from me. Anyway, is Mortenax Blade worth pulling? Absolutely. His amp and low-cost uses easily merit getting a copy of him. Is he a must-pull though? In my opinion, no, since he's kind of in a similar spot to Tribi because both are amazing generalists, but are not often used in memory-specific teams like Mono, Remembrance, and Elation. However, do not underestimate his power as he has a lot to offer. Another thing to note, with Starboard Mode's introduction to the game, you now need 3 teams. You can easily fill in as the 3rd team slot in. Take that information as you will. Thank you all so much for watching. I thought that it was high time guides should begin on the channel, and this one was probably the longest video I've had to work on as a whole so far, so dropping a like, commenting, or even subscribing would mean the world to me. These forms of support not only give the channel a boost, getting us closer to my goal of monetization, but also help me know that this type of content is a thing that is enjoyed by all of you, and will help me create more guides like this one in the future. I'm grateful that you all tuned in. If you're interested in seeing if Tribi or Mortenax Blade is better at E0S0, click the video on the left, or if you wish to see more Star Road content by me, there is a playlist of all of my Star Road videos on the right. I will see you all. Laters.